morning and Jai Hind children. I welcome you all in today's live class of biology. Children, in previous class, I have discussed some of the short answer question of chapter Reproduction in Plants. Is it? So today I am going to discuss rest of the questions of short. Alright? And in previous class, I have discussed the 5 questions of short answer. Is it? Now, today I am going to discuss the next, that is the 6th question. And the question is, list the different kinds of asexual reproduction in plants, giving one example of each. Understood, children? In this question, what you have to write? Yes, you have to write the different kinds of asexual reproduction. Okay, in plants. So that different kind of asexual reproduction in plants are, the first one is fragmentation. And the example of this method is spiral. Alright? Now the second method is budding. And the example of this method is yeast. And the third method of asexual reproduction in plant is spore formation. And the example of this method is mosses. Alright, so these are the 3 different kinds of asexual reproduction in plants, and the example of these methods are also given here. Okay, now come to the next, the question number 7. Now, the question number 7 is, what is vegetative reproduction? So children, here you have to define that vegetative reproduction. And remember that we have discussed in the class that when new plants are produced from the vegetative parts of the mother plant, such as roots, stems or leaves, without the help of any reproductive organs. So it is known as vegetative reproduction. Alright children, understood the meaning of the vegetative reproduction. Okay, now come to the next question number 8. And the question is, what is artificial propagation of plants? And name 4 methods of artificial propagation. Alright? So children, here you have to again explain about the artificial propagation. And the artificial propagation is the process of growing new plants by artificial method. It's known as artificial propagation. Okay. And the 4 methods of artificial propagation are, the first one, grafting. And the second method is cutting. Third method is layering. And the fourth method is tissue culture. Alright, so these are the 4 different methods of artificial propagation. Alright children, now come to the next, that is question number 9. And the question is, what does the process of fertilization consist of? Okay, children, here in this question, you have to write that in the process of fertilization, what occurs? Okay, so the process of fertilization consists of the fusion of the male cell and the egg cell. Okay, in this process, what happens? The fusion of male cell and the egg cell. Alright, now come to the next question number 10. And the question is, when does a seed start germinating? So, children, you know very well, a seed start germinate only under the favorable condition. If favorable conditions will not present, so the seed will not germinate. Alright, so you can say that a seed starts germinating only under favorable conditions, that is, when it gets moisture, warmth, and oxygen. Alright, so these are the three factors, these are the three conditions which are necessary for germination of seed. Okay, what are these three factors? The first one is moisture. Second one is, yes, it's warm. And the third one is oxygen. So these are the three conditions which are necessary for germination of seed. And if any one of them will be absent, so what will happen? Yes, the seed will not germinate. Alright. So children, these all are the short answer questions. And I hope that you understood the answers of these all questions. Okay? Now come to the next exercise, that is long answer questions. Okay, and here you have to write the answer in about one paragraph. Alright, children? And the question number 1 is, discuss giving examples the three different ways of vegetative reproduction. Okay, children, what you have to do here? Here you have to explain in detail the three different ways of vegetative reproduction with example. Alright, so the three different ways of vegetative reproduction are, yes, the first one, the potato, which is an underground stem tuber. When it is cut into parts, the planted in the soil, and each part with an eye or bud develops into a new potato plant. Okay, so this is one of the way of vegetative reproduction, which is found in potato. Alright, the second way is, in some plants such as strawberry and grasses, the main plant develops side shoots which have buds and that grow into new plant. So this is the second way of vegetative reproduction. And example is strawberry and the grasses. Alright, and the third way is the leaf of bryophyllum that has many buds on its margin, and these buds give rise to new plants. Okay, so these are the three different ways by which, yes, the vegetative reproduction takes place in plants. Alright, children, what was the first one? The first one is by underground stem tuber. That example is potato. And the second one is, yes, that like strawberry and grasses, they develop the side shoots. So the side shoots are also one of the way of vegetative reproduction. And the third way is by the leaf of the plant, such as bryophyllum. This is the name of the plant whose leaves have the buds, and these buds give rise to the new plant. And the question number 2 is, what are the advantages of vegetative reproduction? Okay, children, here you have to write the few advantages of vegetative reproduction. So, the first advantage is it allows to produce new plants quickly. Okay. Second advantage, the plants produced by this method are exact copies of the parent plant. And the third advantage is they usually need less attention than plants grown from seeds in the early stages of growth. And the fourth advantage of it is the new varieties of the plants having required characteristics can be developed by this method. Alright, children. So these are the four different advantages of vegetative reproduction of plants. Alright. Now come to the next question number 3. And the question is, explain the following. You have to explain the following three terms. The first one is cutting. Second one is layering. And the third one is grafting. Alright. So come one by one. The first one is cutting. Children, in this method, a healthy young branch of a plant having leaf buds is cut off and planted in moist soil. And the cuttings develop roots and grows into a new plant. Alright, and the example of it is rose, sugarcane, etc. Understood, children? Now the second one is layering. In layering, in this method, a young branch is bent towards the ground and covered with moist soil. And after some time, the roots develop from the covered part. Alright, and this is called a layer. And the branch can now be cut and meant to grow into a new plant. An example of it is jasmine and rose, etc. So this is known as layering. And the third one is grafting. In this method, a twig or bud of one plant, which is called scion, is kept over the cut stem of another plant, which is called the stalk. Alright, so the stalk and the scion, these are the two parts that cut of the two different plants. And in this method, yes, the scion is kept over the stalk. And after that, tying them up together. And the tissues of stalk and scion join together to form one plant. Alright. And the example of this method is mango. Alright, children. So this one is all about the question number 3. Now come to the next question number 4. And the question is, what is pollination and how does it lead to fertilization? Explained with the help of a diagram. So children, remember that in chapter we have discussed about the pollination, fertilization. Okay. So the pollination is a process of transference of pollen grains from the anthers to the stigma. Alright. So this is called pollination. And after the pollination, a thin tube, it is called the pollen tube, that grows down from the pollen grain through the pistil, and the pollen tube carries the male cell. It grows until it reaches the ovule and enters it. Now, the fertilization takes place and zygote is formed. Alright, so this is the complete process of pollination and the fertilization. And you have to draw the diagram for it also. Alright, children? Now, come to the next question number 5. And the question is, why is dispersal of seed necessary? Name the agents of dispersal, giving one example each of a seed that is dispersed by them. So children, here you have to first define that dispersal, why it is necessary, and after that the name of agents with example. Okay, so the dispersal, a plant which produces a large number of seeds. If all these fall below the plant and start growing, they will not get enough space, water, minerals and sunlight. Okay, so they will not develop into healthy plants and many of them may even die. So the dispersal of seed is necessary by some natural agents by which the seeds of a plant get scattered over a large area. And the name of the agents of dispersal are the first one wind, second one water, third animal, and the fourth one is explosion. So these are the four different agents of dispersal of seed. Okay, and the example, the wind is the agent of dispersal of seed like cotton. Water is the agent of dispersal by which the seeds of coconut disperse. The third agent is animal and the example is gentian. And the example of explosion is bee. Alright, so these are the different names of agents of dispersal and these are the names of the seed which dispersed by these agents. Okay, now come to the next question number 6. And the question is, what happens in a flower after fertilization? So children, after the formation of the zygote in fertilization, the petals, sepals and the stamens, they wither away and fall off. Get it? And often the style and the stigma also fall off. Only the ovary remains. And the ovule in the ovary contains a supply of food. And the zygote takes in this food and begins to grow by cell division. In sometimes it becomes an embryo. And meanwhile, the walls of the ovule develop hard layer and forms the seed. Okay? And as the seeds form, the ovary begins to swell and in time it becomes a fruit. Alright, so you can say that after fertilization, ovules forms the seed and ovary forms the fruit. Okay? Now come to the next question number 7. And the question is, explain the process of tissue culture. So children, you have to define here the tissue culture and its process. Alright. So in the method of tissue culture, a piece of tissue is cut off from the growing tip of a plant and the cells are separated and kept in a nutrient medium under controlled conditions. And the nutrient medium contains the hormones that make the cells divide and forms groups of cells. Alright. And the roots also develop. And these are then kept in a different nutrient medium which contains hormones that enables shoot to develop. Get it? So first root develops and after that shoot develops. And this process is known as tissue culture. Alright children? So this is all about your long questions. Now after the long questions we have the hot questions. And question number 1 is improper working of the reproductive organs can lead to death. True or false? And give reason. So children first understood about this question. It's given that improper working of the reproductive organs can lead to death. So this statement is false because reproductive system is not needed for the organism to stay alive as the other system like respiratory system, circulatory system. These systems are needed for the organism to stay alive, whereas this reproductive system is not needed for the organism to stay alive. So that is why this statement is yes, it is all right. Now come to the next question number 2. And the question is what kind of flowers do you expect to be attractive? Insect pollinated flowers or wind pollinated flowers? And why? So children, out of these two kinds of flowers, one who is pollinated by flowers, by insects, and the second, the flowers which are pollinated by wind. Out of these two, yes, what you expect that have more attractive flowers. So children, insect pollinated flowers are expected to be more attractive because the reason they need to attract the insects for pollination. Alright, whereas the wind pollinated flowers they are not pollinated by insects, so they not need to attract the insects for pollination. Okay, so the insect pollinated flowers are expected to be more attractive to attract the insects for pollination. Okay, now come to the next question number 3. And the question is, do you think insect pollinated flowers can also be pollinated by wind? Why? So children, as in our question, I have told that insect pollinated flowers are expected to be more attractive to attract the insects for pollination. Okay, but the wind pollinated flowers, they are not attractive because they do not need to attract the insects for pollination. So we can say that yes, if there is favorable wind, it can carry pollen grains from one insect pollinated flowers to the stigma of another and thus help in pollination. Understood? So that insect pollinated flowers can also be pollinated by wind. In which condition? In the condition if wind is favorable. Get it? Now after the question number 3, you have the question number 4. But this question is omitted. So you have to complete till question number 3 of thoughts in your notebook. Okay. So this is all about the exercise questions. And I hope that you understood the answers of all questions. Is it, children? So if you have still any doubt in any question, so you can ask it in query time. Okay, I will repeat it again in Zoom class. Thank you and have a nice day.